The scent of lavender fabric softener clung to the air as I folded the last of Aaron's shirts. Everything in its place, just the way he liked it. I smoothed my hand over the crisp cotton, savoring the familiar routine that had defined our life together for the past decade. "Honey, I'm home." Aaron's voice echoed through our modest two-story house. I smiled, setting aside the laundry basket. "In the bedroom, dear?" His footsteps thudded up the stairs, and I turned to greet him. But the moment he appeared in the doorway, my smile faltered. Something was off. Aaron's tie was askew, his collar rumpled. A faint smudge of lipstick stained the edge of his shirt. My stomach clenched. "How was your day?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. Same old, same old. Meetings, deadlines, you know how it is." I nodded, watching as he loosened his tie and tossed it onto the dresser. It landed on top of my jewelry box, knocking it slightly askew. The box tumbled to the floor, spilling its contents across the hardwood. "Oh, shoot," Aaron muttered, bending to help me gather the scattered earrings and necklaces. As I reached for a pearl stud, my fingers brushed against something unfamiliar, a small silver locket I'd never seen before. My heart raced as I picked it up, turning it over in my palm. "What's this?" I asked, holding it up to the light. Aaron's face paled. "Oh, that? It's nothing. It's probably just something you forgot about." I frowned, studying the delicate engraving on its surface. S+A, I read aloud. "Aaron, who's S?" He snatched the locket from my hand, shoving it into his pocket. "It's not what you think, Rachel. Just drop it, okay?" The tension in the room was palpable. I stood, crossing my arms over my chest. "No, I won't just drop it. What's going on, Aaron?" He ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. "Look, it's been a long day. Can we talk about this later?" "Later?" I echoed, my voice rising. "When? After you've had time to come up with a better lie?" Aaron's eyes flashed with anger. "What do you want me to say, Rachel? That I'm not happy? That I'm tired of coming home to the same boring routine every day?" His words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the dresser for support. "Boring? Is that what our life together is to you?" He softened slightly, reaching out to touch my arm. I jerked away from his touch. "Rachel, I didn't mean—" The shrill ring of his cell phone cut through the tension. Aaron fumbled in his pocket, glancing at the screen, his face twisted with guilt as he silenced the call. "Who was that?" I demanded, though I already knew the answer in my gut. "It's work," he lied smoothly. "I have to take this. We'll talk later, okay?" Before I could protest, he was gone, thundering down the stairs. The front door slammed shut moments later, leaving me alone with the scattered remnants of my jewelry and my crumbling marriage. I sank onto the bed, my mind reeling. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? The buzzing of my own phone startled me from my thoughts. I glanced at the screen, seeing my mother's name flash across it. "Rachel?" Her warm voice filled the line. "Is everything all right, dear? You sound upset." I took a shaky breath, fighting back tears. "Mom, I think Aaron's having an affair." The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice filled with a mix of concern and determination. "Oh, sweetheart, tell me everything." As I poured out the story, I couldn't shake the feeling that my carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around me. But with my mother's steady presence on the other end of the line, I knew I wouldn't have to face it alone. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor seemed to mock my exhaustion as I trudged towards the exit. Another grueling 12-hour shift done, but my mind wasn't on the patients I'd cared for. It was on Aaron and the growing chasm between us. As I pushed through the double doors into the crisp evening air, my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed on the screen. "Rachel, honey, your father's back is acting up again. Could you stop by on your way home?" I sighed, glancing at my watch. "Of course, Mom. I'll be there in 20. The drive to my parents' house was automatic, muscle memory taking over as my thoughts swirled. It had been 2 weeks since I'd found that locket, and things with Aaron had only gotten worse. He was distant, irritable, always finding excuses to stay late at work or go out with the guys. I pulled into the driveway, spotting Dad through the living room window. He was hunched over in his favorite armchair, grimacing as he tried to find a comfortable position. "There's my girl," he said as I walked in, his face lighting up despite the pain. I kissed his cheek, then turned to Mom. "Where's his medication?" "Kitchen counter," she replied, wringing her hands. Rachel, you look exhausted. Is everything okay? I busied myself with Dad's pills, avoiding her piercing gaze. I'm fine, Mom. Just tired from work. And how's Aaron? She pressed, her tone careful. The pill bottle slipped from my fingers, clattering across the counter. He's fine, I lied, my voice cracking. Mom was at my side in an instant, her arm around my shoulders. Oh, sweetheart, what's going on? The dam broke. Through tears, I told them everything. The locket, the late nights, the growing distance between us. Dad listened silently, his face darkening with each word. I'll kill him, he growled, trying to push himself up from the chair. Philip, sit down before you hurt yourself, Mom scolded, then turned back to me. Rachel, have you talked to him about this? I shook my head, wiping my eyes. I've tried, but he just brushes me off, says I'm being paranoid. Mom's lips thinned into a hard line. Well, that settles it. You're staying here tonight. I won't have you going back to that house in this state. Part of me wanted to protest, to cling to the illusion that everything was fine. But the larger part, the part that was tired of pretending, simply nodded. I'll just run home to grab some things, I said, my voice hollow. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. No surprise there. Aaron had texted earlier saying he'd be working late. Again, I let myself in, flicking on lights as I moved through the silent rooms. Everything looked the same, and yet different, tainted by suspicion and hurt. In our bedroom, I grabbed a duffel bag and started throwing in clothes. As I reached for my toothbrush in the ensuite bathroom, something caught my eye. A glint of silver in the trash can. My heart pounding, I fished it out. It was a small, velvet jewelry box, empty save for a crumpled receipt. For a moment, hope flared in my chest. Had I been wrong? Was Aaron planning some romantic gesture? Then I saw the date on the receipt. 2 days ago, when Aaron had claimed to be stuck at the office all night. With trembling hands, I smoothed out the paper. The item description made my blood run cold. 14K white gold heart pendant, engraved. A sob caught in my throat as the truth crashed over me. There was no mistake, no misunderstanding. Aaron was having an affair. I sank to the cold tile floor, clutching the empty box to my chest. How could he do this? After everything we'd been through together? The sound of a key in the front door jolted me back to reality. Aaron was home. Scrambling to my feet, I shoved the box and receipt into my pocket. I couldn't confront him now. Not like this. I needed time to think, to plan. As his footsteps echoed up the stairs, I made a split-second decision. Grabbing my bag, I slipped out onto the small balcony off our bedroom, hidden from view by the heavy curtains. Rachel? Aaron called out, his voice echoing through the empty house. I held my breath, willing myself to stay silent as he moved around the bedroom. After what felt like an eternity, he left, muttering something about me working late. Only when I heard the shower start did I dare to move. Heart pounding, I crept down the stairs and out the front door, fleeing into the night with my world in pieces around me. The harsh buzz of my alarm jolted me awake, and for a moment I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back in, as I took in the familiar floral wallpaper of my childhood bedroom. I'd been staying at my parents' house for a week now, unable to face Aaron after my discovery. I dragged myself out of bed, the weight of my situation pressing down on me like a physical force. As I stumbled downstairs, the smell of coffee and bacon wafted from the kitchen. "Morning, sweetheart," Mom said, sliding a plate in front of me. "You look terrible. Did you sleep at all?" I shook my head, picking at the food. I kept having nightmares about Aaron and her. Dad lowered his newspaper, his face creased with concern. "Rachel, you can't go on like this. You need to confront him." "I know," I sighed. "I'm going home today. I can't hide forever." The drive back to our house felt like a journey to the gallows. My hands shook as I turned the key in the lock, half expecting to find Aaron with another woman. But the house was empty, eerily quiet. I moved through the rooms, noting the little changes. Dishes piled in the sink, laundry overflowing the hamper. It was as if Aaron had given up on our life together the moment I left. As I reached for the phone to call him, it rang, startling me. Aaron's name flashed on the screen. "Rachel, where the hell have you been?" His voice was a mix of anger and relief. "I've been worried sick," I laughed bitterly. "Worried? That's rich, coming from you." "What's that supposed to mean?" "I know about the affair, Aaron," I spat. "I found the jewelry box. Who is she?" How long has this been going on? The line went silent for a long moment. When Aaron spoke again, his voice was cold. We need to talk. I'm coming home now. The next hour was the longest of my life. I paced the living room, rehearsing what I'd say, imagining his excuses. When the front door finally opened, I steeled myself for the confrontation. Aaron looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot. Rachel, Don't, I cut him off. Just tell me the truth, all of it. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. Her name is Sarah. We've been seeing each other for 6 months. Each word was a dagger to my heart. 6 months? How could you? I didn't mean for it to happen, he said, not meeting my eyes. But Rachel, she's pregnant. The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the back of a chair to keep from falling. Pregnant? But we've been trying for years. Aaron's face twisted with guilt. I know, I'm so sorry, Rachel. I never meant to hurt you. Hurt me? I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. You've destroyed me, Aaron. Everything we built together, all our dreams, it was all a lie. He reached for me, but I recoiled. It wasn't a lie. I do love you, Rachel. I want a family. And Sarah, don't you dare say her name, I shouted, my composure finally shattering. Get out of my house. Your house? Aaron's eyes narrowed. I pay the mortgage, Rachel. If anyone's leaving, it's you. I stared at him, unable to recognize the man I'd married. You can't be serious. I am, he said, his voice cold. I want a divorce. Sarah's moving in next week. The room spun around me. This couldn't be happening. It had to be another nightmare. But Aaron's next words proved it was all too real. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll be hearing from him soon. As he turned to leave, something inside me snapped. I grabbed the nearest object, a framed photo of our wedding day, and hurled it at his retreating back. It shattered against the wall, a fitting metaphor for our marriage. Aaron paused at the door, his expression unreadable. I really am sorry, Rachel. I hope someday you can forgive me. The door closed behind him with a final click, leaving me alone in the wreckage of my life. As I sank to the floor, surrounded by broken glass and shattered dreams, one thought crystallized in my mind. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor did little to mask my exhaustion as I trudged through another grueling shift. It had been 3 days since my confrontation with Aaron, and I'd thrown myself into work, desperate for any distraction from the wreckage of my personal life. As I finished my rounds, my phone buzzed insistently. Aaron's name flashed on the screen, along with a text. We need to talk. Come home after your shift. My stomach churned. Was it even my home anymore? The drive felt interminable, each mile stretching out before me like a sentence. When I finally pulled into the driveway, I sat in the car for a long moment, gathering my courage. The house was quiet when I entered, but I could hear muffled voices from the kitchen. As I rounded the corner, I froze. Aaron was there, but he wasn't alone. A petite blonde woman sat at our kitchen table, her hand resting protectively over a barely visible baby bump. Rachel? Aaron said, his voice strained. This is Sarah. The world tilted on its axis, so this was her. The woman who had stolen my husband, my future, my dreams of motherhood. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. What is she doing here? I hissed, unable to tear my eyes away from Sarah's swollen belly. Aaron cleared his throat. We thought it was time we all talked, face to face. Sarah stood, extending her hand. Rachel, I'm so sorry about all this. I never meant to. Don't, I snapped, ignoring her outstretched hand. Don't you dare apologize to me. Aaron stepped between us. Rachel, please, we're trying to handle this like adults. Adults? I laughed bitterly. There's nothing adult about sneaking around behind your wife's back. How long have you two been planning this little ambush? Sarah's eyes widened. Ambush? No, we just wanted to. To what? I interrupted. Rub it in my face that you're having the baby I never could? That you've taken everything from me? Aaron's face hardened. That's enough, Rachel. We're here to discuss the divorce. I've already spoken to my lawyer. The word hit me like a physical blow. Divorce. This was really happening. I'm not signing anything, I said, my voice shaking. Not until I've spoken to my own lawyer. Aaron sighed. Be reasonable, Rachel. You know this is for the best. We can't go on like this. We? I echoed. There is no we anymore, Aaron. You made sure of that. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should go. No, Aaron said firmly. You're a part of this now. We need to figure out how to move forward, all of us. I stared at them, this picture-perfect little family they'd created. Rage boiled up inside me, hot and fierce. Move forward? I spat. You want to know how I'm moving forward? I'm taking you for everything you're worth, Aaron. The house, the car, every last penny. Aaron's face flushed with anger. You can't do that. I've worked hard for everything we have. We? I laughed. Oh, sweetheart, you seem to be confused about what that word means. I turned to Sarah, who was watching our exchange with wide, fearful eyes. And you think you've won? That you'll live happily ever after with my husband and your baby? Think again. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Aaron slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. I want you out of this house, Rachel. Tonight. I stood my ground, meeting his gaze. Make me. For a moment I thought he might actually try to physically remove me, but then Sarah placed a hand on his arm, her voice soft. Aaron, please. This isn't helping anyone. He deflated slightly, running a hand through his hair. Fine. I'll go. But this isn't over, Rachel. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. As they gathered their things to leave, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was it. The final nail in the coffin of my marriage. Oh, and Aaron, I called as they reached the door. He turned, his expression wary. You might want to ask your new girlfriend about Emma and Linda. The color drained from his face as Sarah's head whipped around to stare at him. Who are Emma and Linda? I smiled, a cold, satisfied thing. Why don't you ask your boyfriend? Look, I'm sure he has a fascinating story to tell. As the door slammed behind them, I sank to the kitchen floor, surrounded by the ruins of my life. But amidst the pain and betrayal, a new emotion was taking root. Determination. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of my fight. The gentle hum of my parents' old station wagon filled the silence as Dad drove us home. Mom sat in the back with me, her arm around my shoulders as I stared blankly out the window. The events of the past few days played on repeat in my mind, a nightmarish loop I couldn't escape. You did the right thing, sweetheart, Mom murmured, squeezing my hand. You couldn't stay in that house with him. I nodded mechanically, unable to form words. The weight of my hastily packed suitcase in the trunk felt like a physical representation of my shattered life. As we pulled into their driveway, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. I stumbled out of the car, barely registering Dad's concerned glance as he carried my bag inside. Why don't you go lie down, Rachel? Mom suggested gently. I'll make some tea. I retreated to my childhood bedroom, collapsing onto the narrow twin bed. The familiar floral wallpaper and faded posters felt like a time capsule, preserving a version of myself that no longer existed. The Rachel who believed in happily ever afters, who trusted blindly, who dreamed of a family with Aaron. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Mom entered, carrying a steaming mug of chamomile tea. How are you holding up, sweetie? She asked, perching on the edge of the bed. I sat up, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. I don't know, Mom. I feel numb, like this is happening to someone else. She nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of sympathy and anger. It's okay to feel that way. You've been through a terrible shock. I just keep wondering how I didn't see it. I whispered, tears welling up. Was I really that blind? Mom's face hardened. This isn't your fault, Rachel. Aaron is the one who broke his vows, who threw away everything you built together. As if summoned by his name, my phone buzzed with a text from Aaron. We need to talk about the house. My lawyer will be in touch. A sob caught in my throat. He wants the house, Mom. He's going to take everything. Like hell he will. Dad's voice boomed from the doorway. He strode in, his face set in grim determination. We're not letting that bastard get away with this. I looked up at him, hope flickering faintly. What can we do? Dad sat down heavily in the old rocking chair by the window. First things first, we're getting you a lawyer. A good one. I can't afford, I started, but Mom cut me off. We'll handle it, sweetheart. This is what savings are for. I stared at them, overwhelmed by their unwavering support. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Dad replied gruffly. You're our daughter. We're not letting Aaron destroy you. As they discussed potential lawyers and next steps, a strange calm settled over me. The numbness began to recede, replaced by a steely resolve. I want to fight, I said suddenly, interrupting their conversation. They turned to look at me, surprise evident on their faces. I want to take him for everything he's worth. Dad's expression shifted into a proud smile. That's my girl. Mom squeezed my hand. "We're with you every step of the way, Rachel." Just then, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. With trembling fingers, I answered. "Hello? Is this Rachel Thompson?" A crisp professional voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "Mrs. Thompson, my name is Alex Garrett. I'm a divorce attorney, and I received your contact information from a mutual acquaintance. I understand you're in need of legal representation." I locked eyes with my parents, a spark of hope igniting in my chest. "Yes, Mr. Garrett, I am." "Excellent. I have an opening tomorrow morning if you'd like to discuss your case." I took a deep breath, feeling the first stirrings of control returning. "I'll be there, and Mr. Garrett, I want you to know that I'm prepared to fight. For everything." There was a pause, then a note of approval in his voice. "I'm glad to hear it, Mrs. Thompson. I look forward to our meeting." As I hung up, I felt a shift inside me. The devastated, betrayed wife was receding, replaced by a woman determined to reclaim her life and her dignity. I looked at my parents, my voice steady for the first time in days. It's time to take back what's mine. My heart pounded as I stood outside the sleek office building, clutching a manila envelope filled with divorce papers. Alex, my lawyer, placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Are you ready for this, Rachel?" he asked, his voice steady and calm. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders, as ready as I'll ever be. We rode the elevator in silence, the tension building with each floor. When the doors opened, I saw them immediately. Aaron and Sarah sitting side by side in the conference room, their heads bent close together. The sight of them, so intimate, so comfortable, made my blood boil. As we entered, Aaron's head snapped up, his eyes widening in surprise. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" I smiled coldly, taking a seat across from them. "Hello, Aaron. Sarah, I believe we have some business to discuss." Sarah shifted uncomfortably, her hand moving protectively over her swollen belly. The gesture sent a sharp pain through my chest, a reminder of everything I'd lost. Aaron's lawyer, a pinched-faced man in an expensive suit, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Thompson, we weren't expecting you today. We had hoped to handle this amicably, through proper channels." Alex stepped forward, his presence commanding the room. "I'm Alex Garrett, Mrs. Thompson's attorney, and I can assure you we're here through very proper channels indeed." I slid the manila envelope across the table. "These are my terms for the divorce, Aaron. I suggest you read them carefully." Aaron's face darkened as he scanned the documents. "This is ridiculous. You can't possibly expect me to agree to this." "Oh, but I do," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "You see, I've been doing some research of my own, and I've uncovered some very interesting information about your extracurricular activities." Sarah's head whipped around to stare at Aaron. "What is she talking about?" I leaned forward, my eyes locked on Aaron's increasingly pale face. "Should I tell her about Emma? Or perhaps Linda? Or are there others I don't know about yet?" The color drained from Aaron's face as Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Aaron, what is she saying?" I didn't," Aaron stammered, looking frantically between Sarah and his lawyer. I felt a surge of vindictive pleasure at his discomfort. "Oh, it's all true, Sarah. And I have proof. Bank statements, hotel receipts, even some rather incriminating photos. I wonder how a judge would view all this in a divorce proceeding." Aaron's lawyer intervened, his voice tight. "Mrs. Thompson, these accusations are highly inappropriate. If you have evidence of misconduct, it should be presented through proper legal channels." "Oh, it will be," Alex assured him smoothly, along with a full accounting of Mr. Thompson's assets, including those offshore accounts he thought were so well hidden. Aaron's face went from pale to ashen. "How did you—" I stood, gathering my things. "You underestimated me, Aaron. You thought I was just the dutiful wife, too naive to see what was right in front of me. But I'm not that woman anymore." Sarah burst into tears, pushing away from the table. "I can't believe this. How could you, Aaron?" As she fled the room, Aaron made to follow her, but I blocked his path. "Let her go. You've done enough damage." He glared at me, his voice low and dangerous. "You'll regret this, Rachel. I swear you will." I met his gaze unflinchingly. "No, Aaron. The only thing I regret is wasting 15 years of my life on you." As we left the conference room, I felt a strange mix of triumph and exhaustion. Alex squeezed my arm supportively. "You did well in there, Rachel, but this is just the beginning. Are you prepared for what comes next?" I nodded, a steely determination settling over me. Whatever it takes, Alex. I won't let him win. Not this time. As we stepped into the elevator, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the mirrored walls. The woman staring back at me was stronger, fiercer than I'd ever been, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was ready for the fight of my life. The courtroom buzzed with tension as I sat beside Alex, my hands clenched tightly in my lap. Across the aisle, Aaron glowered at me, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. Sarah was nowhere to be seen. "All rise," the bailiff called out as the judge entered. As the proceedings began, I felt a surge of nervous energy. This was it, the moment of truth. Alex presented our case with surgical precision, laying out Aaron's infidelities, financial deceptions, and emotional abuse. I watched Aaron's face grow increasingly pale as each piece of evidence was presented. When it was Aaron's turn to testify, he put on a show of remorse. "Your Honor, I made mistakes. I'm not proud of my actions, but Rachel and I built a life together. Surely that counts for something?" I bit my lip to keep from laughing bitterly. How dare he try to play on our shared history now? As Aaron's testimony concluded, Alex stood. "Your Honor, we have one more witness to call, Sarah Thompson." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom as Sarah entered, her pregnant belly prominently displayed. Aaron's eyes widened in shock. "Miss Thompson," Alex began, "can you tell the court about your relationship with Aaron?" Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke. "Aaron told me he was separated. He said Rachel couldn't have children, that their marriage was over. I believed him." I felt a stab of sympathy for her, despite everything. She'd been a victim of Aaron's lies, too. "And when did you discover the truth?" Alex pressed. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Last week, when Rachel's private investigator contacted me with proof of Aaron's other affairs." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Aaron's lawyer jumped to his feet, objecting vehemently, but the damage was done. As Sarah stepped down, Alex produced a thick folder. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit these photos and financial records as evidence." My heart raced as the judge examined the documents. Images of Aaron with Emma and Linda, bank statements showing suspicious transfers, hotel receipts. It was all there. Aaron's face contorted with rage. "You bitch!" he snarled, lunging towards me. The bailiff intercepted him as chaos erupted in the courtroom. As they dragged Aaron away, his eyes locked with mine. "I'll make you pay for this, Rachel. I swear I will." The judge's gavel came down hard. "Order. Mr. Thompson, control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt." As the commotion settled, the judge turned to me. "Mrs. Thompson, given the evidence presented, I'm inclined to rule in your favor. However, there's one more matter to address. Your medical records indicate several failed IVF attempts. Mr. Thompson claims your inability to conceive was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage. Do you wish to respond?" I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. This was the moment I'd been dreading, the most painful secret I'd kept buried. With shaking hands, I produced a sealed envelope. "Your Honor, I have a statement from my doctor that I'd like to submit." As the judge read the document, her eyes widened. She looked at me, then at Aaron, who was watching with growing confusion. "Mr. Thompson," the judge said slowly, "according to this medical report, you are the one with fertility issues, not your wife. Mrs. Thompson's inability to conceive was due to your low sperm count and motility." The courtroom fell silent. Aaron's face drained of all color as the truth sank in. I stood, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "I kept your secret, Aaron. Even when you blamed me, even when you sought comfort in other women's arms, I protected your pride at the cost of my own happiness." Tears streamed down my face as years of pent-up emotion poured out. "But I'm done protecting you. I'm done being the victim of your lies and manipulation. Today, I'm taking back my life." As I sank back into my seat, exhausted but triumphant, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Whatever the judge's final ruling, I knew I had already won the most important battle, the one for my self-respect. The gavel came down one final time. In light of this new evidence, I'm prepared to make my ruling. The morning sun streamed through the windows of my new apartment, casting a warm glow over the freshly painted walls. 6 months had passed since that fateful day in court, and my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. I sipped my coffee, savoring the quiet moment before heading to the clinic. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Dinner at 6. Dad's grilling your favorite." A smile tugged at my lips. My parents... unwavering support had been my anchor through the storm of the past year. Their love reminded me daily of the family I still had, even as I mourned the one I'd lost. As I drove to work, I reflected on the whirlwind of changes. The judge's ruling had been swift and decisive. Aaron's infidelities, financial deceptions, and the revelation about his fertility issues had sealed his fate. I was awarded the house, a substantial alimony, and a clean break from the man who had shattered my world. The clinic bustled with activity as I arrived. My colleagues greeted me warmly, a far cry from the pitying glances I'd endured in the early days of the divorce. Now they saw me as I saw myself, stronger, more confident, and finally free. Midway through my shift, a familiar face appeared in the waiting room. Sarah, her belly now swollen to full term, locked eyes with me. For a moment, tension crackled between us. Then, to my surprise, she approached. "Rachel," she said softly, I owe you an apology." I gestured for her to sit, curiosity overriding my initial wariness. "You don't owe me anything, Sarah." She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I do. I believed Aaron's lies, just like you did, and when the truth came out, I realized we were both victims of his manipulation." A lump formed in my throat. "How are you doing?" I asked, genuinely concerned. Sarah managed a weak smile, rubbing her belly. "It's been hard, but I'm making it work. Aaron, he's not in the picture anymore." I nodded, understanding all too well the pain of that particular absence. "If you need anything." "Thank you," she said, squeezing my hand. "You're a better person than I could ever be, Rachel." As Sarah left, I felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift from my shoulders. Forgiveness, it seemed, was as much a gift to myself as to her. The rest of my shift flew by, and soon I found myself pulling into my parents' driveway. The smell of grilled steak wafted through the air, mingling with the scent of Mom's famous apple pie. Dad enveloped me in a bear hug the moment I stepped inside. "There's my girl," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Rachel, honey, there's someone here to see you." Confused, I followed her into the living room. There, looking nervous but determined, stood Alex, my lawyer. "Alex, what are you doing here?" He cleared his throat, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. I wanted to ask you something." Away from the office. My heart skipped a beat as understanding dawned. "Oh, Rachel," he said, taking my hand. "I know we started as lawyer and client, but these past months, I've come to care for you deeply. Would you consider having dinner with me? Not to discuss legal matters, but just us?" For a moment, I was transported back to that scared, broken woman I'd been a year ago. The one who believed she'd never trust again, never love again. But as I looked into Alex's earnest eyes, I felt the last of my walls crumble. "I'd like that," I said softly, squeezing his hand. As we joined my parents for dinner, laughter and warmth filling the air, I marveled at the journey that had brought me here. From the ashes of betrayal and heartbreak, I had risen, stronger, wiser, and finally truly free. The future stretched before me, no longer a source of fear, but of endless possibility, and for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it might lead. As I raised my glass in a toast, surrounded by those who truly loved me, I knew with absolute certainty this was not an ending, but a beautiful